It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Smooth and Savvy is joined by Light and Fluffy for an hour of talk, music, and fun, along with our own Periscope girl. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Smooth and Savvy himself, Douglas Coleman.
Howdy, howdy, ho. Hey, hey, hey. Ho, ho, ho. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? How are you? We got a really good show for you today. I'm very excited about this guest that we have on. He is a fantastic singer-songwriter and producer, and he's got an incredible resume and has some great songs that we're going to play in a little bit. His name is Bradley Cohn. I'm very interested to talk to him, very excited to talk to him. He will be out here in just a few minutes. But right now, I want to introduce my co-host. She is the president and founder of Lady Lake Entertainment, the always light and fluffy, Ms. Cindy Diadamo. Hey, Cindy, how are you?
Hi, Douglas. Doing great. How about yourself?
Oh, not too bad. Well, the Burbs went off, yeah? We had the first episode of The Burbs last Thursday, and I think people really liked it. What did you think?
I think it was so interesting, and in fact, in looking at the numbers, we have quite a few people picking up the replay. The interest is building. Good, good. Well, I really like the first episode, and it gets creepier, and it gets better. And that narrator, how about him?
Yeah, he did a nice job. Well, you know what I liked about The Burbs? Well, aside from the fact that I'm working on it, but the way it's written, I got to really give Leanne applause for the way she wrote it, because it starts out kind of slow, but it just keeps getting creepier, and each episode gets a little more creepy and a little more weird. And you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of bands that some of them made the mistake of putting out their best album for their first album. And I can think of several bands that did that. And they could never quite get, past that first album because the first album was so fantastic. With this one, it's not going to be like that. It's building and building and building. Because the first episode is like, they're just moving in and getting settled, and then something weird happens and something. So she wrote it really, really well, and I really give her applause for that.
There are little clues if you listen. There are little things that are kind of, you just listen and you're like, I wonder why they said that, or wonder what that could be, or that's weird, that doesn't add up. It's almost like an Agatha Christie story where there's little tiny things. If you pay attention, you'll put the backstory together.
Right. The other thing too, because it's not a very long show. It's only like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So to write that and get it all in 10 minutes, I think really was a feat for her. I don't know how she did it, but I definitely applaud her for doing that.
Really an interesting concept and so fresh and new. It's like, you know how they say everything is old, that's old is new again.
Right. The other thing, so I want to mention that the next episode 2, will be on this coming Thursday, October 8th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Mm-hmm. And please go to CarmenTheaterOnline.com to find the links. It's on Spreaker. It'll be broadcast on Spreaker, and then it'll be uploaded to YouTube. If you miss it, because I know it's a short show, the archive will be up right after the show, and you can get all caught up and find out what happens to Lisa and Brittany. The other thing I saw in the news this week was that David Cassidy is in trouble again. He got cited, I guess. I don't know. I don't think they arrested him, but he got cited for a hit-and-run accident. Apparently, he sideswiped a big rig on the freeway and stopped for a minute, but I guess he was trying to hide his license plate or something. and then he just took off again. So the cops found him a couple of hours later at an unrelated doctor's appointment and cited him for hit and run, leaving the scene of an accident. He was driving with expired tags and also on a suspended license, which got suspended for his third DUI or something like that. This really hasn't been a very good year for David Cassidy. Actually, the last couple of years, he got, I think, 2 or 3 DUIs. He had a meltdown in Las Vegas, which we all read about. I guess he was, swearing at the audience. I don't know what was going on. Apparently, he was quite intoxicated. And then they just auctioned off his mansion in Florida because he owed so much money. It was a court-ordered auction for his part of his bankruptcy agreement. His wife of 22 or 23 years filed for divorce. The guy's life is just going down like a train wreck, and I sort of feel bad for him in one sense. I know a lot of it is alcohol problem, which I don't know if I feel bad for him about the alcohol problem, but I do feel bad that, here's a guy who was once on top of the world, and now, like so many years later, he's just like crashing and burning. And I don't know, it makes me a little sad because I was a huge Partridge Family fan when I was a kid. I used to watch that show all the time. I love that show. And to see, somebody who was in that show at his prime being so good, and then you see him now, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, really. He was, obviously he and both his brother are very good looking, very talented, despite the fact that they were branded as bubblegum artists. They're both very talented with good voices and lots of skill. Showbiz family, big names, it's very sad. And wouldn't you think if someone was that much of a celebrity with that much of a problem that they would perhaps either go into a rehab or have a driver?
Well, that's true. And I guess he's been in rehab and out of rehab, but I guess he just can't stay away from the bottle. I don't know. Because he keeps having all of these problems. Like you said, at least they had talent back then. Mm-hmm. He was a great singer and he wrote songs. He also played the guitar. His half-brother Sean was a great talent, played piano, guitar, sang, he wrote, and even the bubblegum stars back in those days had to have real talent. They sort of marketed him as teen idols, and their music was kind of bubblegumish, but they had to at least be able to pull it off and to be able to do it for real. There was no lip syncing back in those days. His stepmom is Shirley Jones, who I always had a crush on as a little kid. I always thought she was just fabulous, and she still is. I mean, she still looks amazing.
She was so pretty, and what a beautiful, beautiful voice.
Yes, great singer, amazing singer. She was married to Jack Cassidy, who is Sean's and David's father. He died in a really awful way. He burned to death in his penthouse apartment in Hollywood in 1976 because he was drunk, passed out with a lit cigarette, and the whole place went ablaze. And
wow, I did not know that story.
Yeah, and in fact, I guess he was so badly burned that they had to identify him with dental records. I mean, it was really gruesome. What a way to go, huh?
It's terrible, but you know what? That just shows you that it doesn't matter how much money you have or how much celebrity you have. Everybody has problems.
Well, it's true. And sometimes being a celebrity creates those problems because of the pressure of being a celebrity. I think David probably, what did he do really after the Partridge Family? Did he do anything?
I don't remember anything substantial. I think he was on Broadway for a while in some show or the other. I can't.
Oh, I do remember something about that. Yeah, he was in some kind of Broadway show.
Because I try and follow his career in a way, and I also follow like Donny Osmond in a way. Because see, when I was growing up, those were the of the day.
I remember Donnie, and I remember his little brother, Jimmy. And there was another one. Do you remember Bobby Sherman?
Oh, absolutely. My friend Terry, who I grew up with, she was of the Bobby Sherman fan of it all. And so she had the posters and whatnot. He was good looking. I think he was a cop, Bobby Sherman.
Was he really?
Yeah.
There were a bunch of them back in those days. There was right. Well, Peter Frampton started out like that, but then
I was going to say Peter Frampton.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm a gigantic Peter Frampton fan, and what I did not know was I was buying the old punch out. You know what a punch out record is? The ones that are left over and they put a little punch hole in them so that they're not worth the shelf value or they're not the popular hit or whatever.
Right.
And so they would put them in a bin and you could go through them for $1 or something.
Right.
I found an old Peter Frampton record and I did not know, but inside of it, there was a thing, join the Peter Frampton fan club.
Oh.
You know, it's from back in the day, and there was a big poster of him with all the hair and, the no shirt and all of it.
Well, anyway, so much for the pinups. Okay, well, I think our Periscope girl is calling in now, so let's check in with her. Hello, Periscope girl.
Hello, Periscope girl.
Periscope girl reporting, Captain. Ahoy, Lady Lake. Here are some tips to make your periscopes all shipshape before you cast off and set sail. Yo ho ho. Name your periscopes. Buccaneers will be trawling through the scopes, so if you have anything interesting, informative, or just dead funny, put that in the title. Blast it! Don't shoot your feet. The first image of your periscope will be saved next to your broadcast for the next 24 hours. Yo ho ho, so point at something interesting, like a treasure chest, a fellow pirate asleep, or a bottle of rum. Yah, land lovers, be your wonderful self. You don't have to show your face if you don't want to, and don't be afraid to block them bilge rats. Yah, they start any of their shenanigans. So, take a break from the mopping of the decks and have fun. Gather your crew around you, and it's all happiness into the sea. Yah! So, my hearties, don't forget to share the love and give some hearties by tapping your screen while you're watching. Hoist up the mainsail. Periscope girl, over and out.
Okay, thank you, Periscope girl. There she goes, back into the depths of the North Atlantic, into the murky, cold water. And we will talk to her again next week. And now, once again, it's time for Lady Lake Corner.
Welcome to this week's edition of Lady Lake Corner. You can find more information, photos, links, music, and show dates on www.reverbnation.com/label/Lady Lake Music. This week, we are proud of our 2 Texas artists, David Martinez and Jimmy Wilden, who performed at Texas Indie Fest, a part of the Surftoberfest at Executive Surf Club in Corpus Christi on October 3rd. During his set, Jimmy performed his hot new single, Stuck in Love, which is now in rotation and can be requested on KBSO 94.7 Jalapeno Country. Other acts of the event included Jennifer Sullivan, Arcade Hustlers, and The Booked. Texas Indie Fest is an event put on by Irvin Pulliam of Match One Entertainment out of Seattle and Jeff Papa from Indie On Air in Indiana. It takes place twice a year, once during the week of South by Southwest at the Red Shed Tavern, and also in the fall, this year for the first time in Corpus Christi, Texas. That's all for this week's edition of Lady Lake Corner.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto!
Wrong hat.
I take a 7.5.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, my guest today, he started playing piano at 6, was writing songs at 9, first recorded one of his songs in a professional recording studio at age only 10, where he was co-produced by Mike Moran, who's also worked with Freddie Mercury, George Harrison, David Bowie, Van Morrison. In 2009, he became an in-house producer for EMI, working out of Abbey Road Studios and the Roundhouse. In 2014, he moved to Los Angeles, where he has already worked at East West, Ocean Way, The Village, NRG, New West Records, Phonogenic Studios, Nightbird Studios, as well as performed on local radio shows and at venues such as the House of Blues, Solo House, and RG Club. Please welcome my special guest, Bradley Conn. Hello, Bradley. How are you?
Thank you, Douglas. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Do you prefer Brad or Bradley?
I don't mind.
Either one. Okay, very good. Well, this is a really incredible bio. I've got to ask you right off the top, because I'm a huge Beatles fan. What was it like to work at Abbey Road Studios?
It's wonderful. Abbey Road is like, it's a real milestone. Every trip in there feels special. It just does. The history and the vibe of the place is extremely inspiring, and I think it can be intimidating to young artists because you feel like you have to produce the best thing ever when you go in there. But that's great as well, in that it's just a wonderful place. It's a really wonderful place, and I was really proud and thankful to call it kind of home base for us for a period.
Now, they haven't redecorated it at all, have they? I mean, does it look pretty much like it did when the Beatles were there?
Well, I don't know, because I wasn't alive when the Beatles were working there, but they're very conscious of any changes they make. So I know the equipment gets updated every decade or so. They might put in, or more probably every 2 decades or so, they might change out a console. The desk in Studio 2, which is the Beatles, one that the Beatles did a lot of work in, I think that's changed since I was working there. All those decisions are made very carefully and thought out in terms of what equipment's going in the room. And it doesn't get, certainly the main the recording spaces I don't think have changed, or not much. The actual live rooms, which is I guess what makes the studio so famous. So the control rooms have probably changed a little bit. The live rooms probably are largely intact, I would have thought, certainly in Studio 1 and 2.
Well, the pictures that I've seen, it was just this giant white room with basically nothing in it except maybe a piano and a bunch of chords.
Yeah, that's basically how it is with wooden floors and
right.
The odd acoustic panel on the wall. That's basically what it is. Yeah.
Well, I want to go back. If you would give us a little bit of background on yourself. It's interesting that you started playing at such a young age. So obviously you had the gift for the musical ear that usually starts with children, and where they start picking up tunes and things when they're little, listening to the radio and whatever they were listening to at the time. So if you could just give us a little background where you grew up. And
Sure, yeah. I grew up in a little village on the edge of northwest London called Radlett, that at the time was, I guess, it just so happened that a lot of music people lived there. It was a kind of suburb, but it made London very accessible, both by train and by car. So Alison Moyer used to live there, Peter Van Hook, who was a drummer and record producer, and I was friendly with his son. We went to school together. So he heard what I was up to and writing these songs, and saw my passion for music and introduced me to Mike Moran, whose studio I went to record my first few songs, first in Radlett, and later he moved to Great Missenden, which is a bit further out of London, but still within an hour of central London or so. So I mean, my mum said I could sing before I could talk. I was very responsive to music as a kid, and I have a lot of early memories that involve music.
Well, now this says that you recorded your first song when you were 10 years old, which is pretty amazing. 10
or 11. It was around that age. So I'd been bought a keyboard, and I used to make these little songs on the keyboard that I would play and kind of program and write and sing melodies over the top of it while I was playing. My parents not really knowing anything about music, my dad's being a music fan, they were really supportive, and they said, how can we support our son? And so, as I said, Pete introduced me to Mike Moran, who later became a lifelong friend and mentor. Mike had a great studio in his house, and that was the first recording I did. And then I think I did another one when I was 12 or so. That was, I was getting into rock music at the time. I remember Mike, who's a keyboard player and an orchestrator, composer, but his primary instrument is keyboard. He would play the guitar solos on the keyboard, and I just remember being so impressed because I was just starting to really love electric guitar, and I was just amazed at how he could imitate that instrument on another instrument. So yeah, that's where it all started.
What song did you record at 10? Was that one of your own compositions?
It was one of my own. Yeah, it was, I guess, a little bit cheesy. I don't even know what it was called. The hook was basically "I Love You" was the hook. It was kind of a cross between a ballad and a reggae song, because those were the kind of program presets that I was pulling up on the keyboard. So I would switch it on the fly, and it would move from, as I said, this kind of ballad to like a jingly reggae kind of chorus.
So you don't happen to have that recording yet?
I've got it. I think I've got it on a cassette tape somewhere.
That would be a real fun one to play on the radio show.
Yeah, I'll see if I can dig it out for you, but I think it's in London on a cassette.
Oh, well, that's all right. Okay, so then it says here that at 16, you were fronting a rock band as both the lead singer and rhythm guitarist.
I really got hit with the rock and roll bug. I guess it started around that kind of 11, 12-year-old mark. And certainly by the time I was 15, 16, I was big into bands like Aerosmith. What else was I listening to? Led Zeppelin, classic rock. But yeah, I used to really like Aerosmith was one of my favorites at the time. And so I was in a band with schoolmates, all very good musicians, classically trained musicians. We were in a rock band, and we would incorporate their classical instruments as well at times. So the keyboard player would jump on the sax occasionally, and the drummer would jump on the trombone, and the bass player went on to play in the London Philharmonic, which is arguably one of the best orchestras in the world. Yeah, we did that for a couple of years, and I really had the bug for it. And they had different interests. I mean, the drummer's gone on to become a working session drummer in Scotland. The bass player, as I said, was for years working in orchestras, and the keyboard player lives in Ireland now, and he's a free jazz composer and musician. The guitarist, I think, went into marketing or real estate. We did some good recordings. We recorded with Pete Van Hook, at that time had set up his own studio, and we went in and did, I think, a 5-track EP. It was pretty cool. And as I said, we played on the London circuit, all the kind of bars and clubs. Thinking back now, we were underage, so maybe they're a bit more relaxed in the UK than they are here in America about the whole being around alcohol thing. But yeah, we did it.
Well, let's get to one of your songs. Which one would you want to play first? Anyone But Freedom. I want to play that one last because that's the one I like.
Why don't we start with Time to Fly?
Okay, sounds good. Tell us about that one.
I wrote this song some time ago. It's probably 4 or 5 years ago now. And it's really, I guess it's kind of my relationship to certain romantic situations I was in. I feel that people, can be quite scared to open up and really reveal the most intimate parts of themselves. And I'm a real romantic at heart. And so the song is me basically saying, take a chance with me. Let's fly together, and let's not hold back and just give the best of ourselves and see how far we can go. And if it doesn't work out, we're no worse off than we are in this very moment. So why not give it a try? And that's the essence of the song, really.
Okay, well, when you started in with the romantic bit, I took it the other way. I said time to fly, meaning a relationship gone bad. Time to fly, time to go. I'm out of here.
Yeah, no, it's, but that's the beauty of art, that it can be interpreted so many ways.
Okay, well, this is Time to Fly by Bradley Kahn.
If you say you can't, you never will. Some will try and some will fail, but you won't get too far up the hill standing still. Troubled times, I know the score. The road is long and life is short. Till the end, our dreams are worth fighting for. You and I can have it all. It's time to fly and right by your side. Time to fly. Do or don't, there's no trying. I got you. I got you. So take my hand, let's not delay. We can always come again someday. Who really cares what people say? We'll do it our way. And if it all comes crashing down, we know we're softer when we started out. It's time to fly. I'm right by your side. Time to fly. Do or don't, there's no trying. Ooh, I got you. Ooh, no playing safe. Ooh, I got you. I got you. Let's turn it on. Push these walls. No holding back. I'm cool with that. Clear these shores. Claim them all. This heart is mine. And it's on the line. Time to fly. I'm right by your side. It's time to fly. You can leave all your worries behind. Ooh, I've got you. Ooh, don't hesitate. Time to fly.
Yes, very nice. Like how
Thanks, Douglas.
music today, sample-based music, doesn't cut to the core of the passion that people can feel. I think largely because the sort of soul element has been removed. When you
I
use
totally
them.
agree. I mean, when people ask me what music I make as a producer, I always say performance-based music. I mean, there's some genres that I'm not super into, or areas of certain genres rather, because as I said, I have a pretty broad taste. But whether it's sample-based or it's instrument-based, I like there to be a performance element. You know, early hip-hop, for example, people were sampling records, but there was still no computers. So they were having to trigger the samples manually or loop the samples manually. There was always that kind of slight human error. And that made those records feel very exciting. Whereas when it's done with a computer and everything's locked to a grid, there are some times where you kind of want that and it enhances the emotion in the music. But more often than not, it makes it feel sterile. And I totally agree with you.
And the problem is that the sort of individual fingerprint of the music and the artist gets lost. Because there's I can't tell the difference from a lot of these songs that I hear.
I agree. I mean, even down to little things like even with music like the music I make, it's very easy with Pro Tools to want to tune everything and fix everything. And again, the music kind of loses its soul, and you hear it a lot on commercial radio where you've got rock bands and the singers all sound the same and the guitar sounds all sound the same because it's all kind of gone through the same processing. So I think, I tend to, sure, there are times we use the studio to enhance music, but more often than not, if it felt good the way it went down, then I leave it.
There's also a big difference in hearing real instruments versus MIDI instruments.
Absolutely. MIDI instruments have gotten a lot better. Like if you compare what's on offer now to what was on offer in the 80s when that technology was starting to, be prevalent, it's a whole different landscape. But nonetheless, I just had a shipment a couple of days ago, some of my equipment from the UK, and my Fender Rhodes showed up. It's probably my favorite instrument that I own. For those listeners that don't know, Fender Rhodes it's a vintage keyboard that I can actually give you a little sample if you like, but it's basically a bell sounding. I'm going to walk over to it and just play something. But the reason I'm bringing it up is it's so rich in harmonics. You can't really recreate it digitally. I mean, they've gotten better, but this is for those of you that don't know, this is the sound of a Rhodes. And it's so warm and lovely. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Same with the sound of voices. I think the sound of voices harmonizing is probably the most beautiful sound in the world.
Sure.
And the sound of a Hammond organ, you can't really recreate that digitally.
What's interesting about the Fender Rhodes is it was one of its own instruments. I mean, it really was an instrument all to itself. You wouldn't call it a piano. You wouldn't call it an electric piano. Everybody just referred to it as the Fender Rhodes.
Yeah, totally. And it was funny because, I had somebody here last night and I said to them, it only really makes one sound, but it just is a beautiful sound and that's what it does. And it doesn't work for everything, but when it works, it's great and it's not to be messed with, really.
Well, it certainly worked on a few Billy Joel songs, and I remember Paul Simon, still crazy after all these years.
Yeah, I mean, with rock, pop, soul, and jazz, obviously in the 70s it got very heavily used. I remember listening to Herbie Hancock records. I think there was a period where all he played for a couple of years was Rhodes. It's a wonderful instrument.
The other thing too about modern productions is that they tend to cut and paste vocals, which I don't like at all. I want somebody to sing the whole song.
I agree. I mean, singers are often surprised at me when I say to them, okay, we've done the backing vocals for the first chorus. Now let's do it for the second chorus. They're like, well, can't you just copy it over? I said, well, I don't really want to, The little variances are what it kind of keeps it interesting, and the ear hears something new and the harmonics blend in a slightly different way. And I think that's what music's all about. It's that kind of, it's vibration at the end of the day. And if you just copy and paste it, as I said, there are some songs where having something, really rigidly to a grid actually enhances the music. But more often than not, I think it's nice to have fluctuations and variances in music.
One of the things that was on your bio is a company called Creative Ninja Productions. Tell us about that. Creative
Ninjastries.
Ninjastries. Okay. Tell us about that.
I was having a bit of an identity crisis because I was like, what is my brand? I'm a producer, I'm a writer, I'm an artist. I've put on events, I've done consultancy, I've written for TV and film. I'm a music professional, I'm a creative person. But, if I speak to people, I feel like I'm confusing them sometimes when they say, well, are you an artist or are you a producer? People didn't seem to have the bandwidth to hold both ideas. So I spoke to a friend I worked with a consultant who was kind of in branding, and he helped me kind of define a brand. So we came up with this idea, the Creative Ninja. And so on the one hand, creative has connotations of the work that I do. And then Ninja was kind of a bit under the radar, very efficient, kind of swift in operation, and kind of got the job done professionally and quickly and diligently. So that was the brand. And I later formed the company and have worked pretty much under that company umbrella since that time.
The next one I want to play is Beautiful. So can you tell us about that one?
Sure. So this is from the Social Gravy project that was mentioned a little earlier. Most of that project is quite indie rock and quite upbeat, but this song is a ballad, it's a down-tempo track. I think it's charming and endearing, and yeah, it's just an ode to love and an ode to beauty.
Okay. Well, this is Beautiful by Bradley Cohn.
Broken down on an open road. It's gonna be some time before I get a tow. I call you up, though my battery's low. Just your voice makes me feel at home. The way you smile proves that there's an order to this game. Though miles away, it feels the same. Your eyes are so beautiful. Hide as you might, you're so beautiful. None can deny you're so beautiful. Time ticks by and my mind unwinds, calmed by the changing patterns in the sky. Waiting here helps me quantify all the broken pieces that I left behind. The way you smile proves that there's an order to this game. Never the same. Let's play again. Your eyes are so beautiful. Hide as you might, you're so beautiful. None can deny you're so beautiful. Smile proves that there's an order to this game. It's hard to explain, but maybe I'm amazed. Your eyes are so beautiful. Hide as you might, you're so beautiful. None can deny you're so beautiful.
Okay, very, very nice. It has a very John Lennon sound to the piano, and especially even in the chords, in the way that the structured is some of those secret John Lennon chords that he used to use on some of his piano ballads.
V, my partner on the project, was, as I said, quite Beatle influenced, so that definitely crept in.
Well, it has that, and it also echoes of that Joe Cocker song, "You Are So Beautiful to Me."
Yeah,
it has
that's
a little
great
bit of
song.
that.
It's
Yeah,
a great song. Yeah, there's. I don't know if it comes across, but I'm very into Van Morrison and also Ryan Adams. So I guess there's a little bit of that in there as well.
I can definitely hear Van Morrison. It says here in 2014 that you moved to LA. Was that your first time to live in the U.S.?
Yeah, I was visiting the US more and more frequently. I started in 2011, I think. I was encouraged by Seymour Stein, who's an old music industry legend and has become a friend of mine, to come to the United States. And he suggested I go to South by Southwest, which I did. And I started making connections and picking up work here. I loved the can-do attitude that exists in America, particularly on the coasts, in New York and Los Angeles. I loved that, and I loved the opportunity that was available, and the fact that the people that do things here, they tend to really go big. I was drawn to that and to the lifestyle, and later moved here.
Did you have any impressions that were negative of the U.S. compared to the U.K.? Like, they should be more like the British in this sense.
Well, not initially. Initially, I was very kind of wowed by the situations I was finding myself in and people I was around. I had a very positive experience. After being here for some time, you start to see other sides. I mean, I'm paraphrasing now, but there's a quote that says something like, "Judge a nation by how it treats its less fortunate citizens." And unfortunately, here in the US, I think poor people are kind of left to rot a little bit. There's not the kind of healthcare, general welfare, care for welfare that I think there is in Europe. That's been alarming, seeing how, not that it doesn't happen in the UK that, companies don't put profits before people, but I think it's so alarmingly obvious here. There are attitudes here that are different. As much as there's a very can-do, you can have it all, go get it kind of attitude, there's also a very conservative underlying attitude that pops up in all parts of life. Bureaucratically, people are very like, this is the rule book and this is how it's done, and you need this paper and you need this permit and whatever. And also I even found it with regards to relationships. I think that there's a kind of, I don't want to call it open-mindedness, but in Europe, we're just not so uptight about certain things. With regards to relationships and things of a sexual nature, I think it's more relaxed in Europe than it is here.
I think that it's more relaxed anywhere than it is in the U.S.
Possibly. Like the idea, of a woman sunbathing topless on the beach, it's no big deal. It's a natural thing. It's the same as a guy going shirtless, but here it causes uproar. Little things. And yet, media and marketing is so sexually driven. It's kind of oxymoronic.
Well, it is. And I think it's hypocritical because on the one hand, where you see the movies and the videos of the girls just dancing around practically naked, and that being the sort of norm. On the other hand, you have to be very careful what you say and what you... it's okay to show that, but let's not talk about it. It seems to be, and that I don't get that at all. And I don't know where that came from. We still have that element in the U.S. I mean, right to the more modern things with the same-sex marriage. There's still those last holdouts of these people who, have the Bible in one hand and a gun in the other hand. Let's go to the last song. Let's just go right into it, which is Freedom. So if you could just tell us about that one.
This song, all these songs actually are soon to be released. Time to Fly and Freedom are going to be on my personal album, and Beautiful is from the Social Gravy project. Freedom came from me being a massive Jimi Hendrix fan and hearing his song Freedom, being really let down by the chorus, and was like, I love Jimmy, and, he's so great, and this song could be so much better. So I basically took his riff, changed it a little bit, hopefully so it's not exactly the same, and kind of rewrote the song. And so that's what this is, and it's me doing a kind of Hendrix, Lenny Kravitz kind of vibe.
Okay, well, I didn't pick up that wasn't one that came to mind, so I don't think you copied him to the point.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
No, I don't think you'll get sued for this one. It's not that
That's good.
close.
As I said, it was inspired by that, but it's the riff has been altered, and the chorus and the flow of the song is very different. So
Okay, well, this is Freedom by Bradley Cohen.
Hey, pretty mama, did something get in your way? You might be smoking, but that don't mean that you're made. I hope your freedom don't go to waste. Hey, what's up, brother? Have you got something to say? God voices informed if we just read as displayed. Ooh, I hope we work it out. Hope we don't leave it too late and see our freedom walking away. Have you not seen the signs? Have you been looking away? If your eyes are open and don't take the bait, I hope we work it out. Hope we don't leave it too late and see our freedom walking away. Some will call it a crime. Some will blame our mistakes. That we did it to ourselves is the biggest disgrace. I hope we work it out. Hope we don't leave it too late and see our freedom walking away.
Yeah. Well, that one is definitely my favorite.
thank you. Cool. Thank you.
Do you know who Burton Cummings is?
No, I don't think I do.
Do you remember a band called The Guess Who?
Funnily enough, I was just with Garth Richardson a couple of days ago in Canada. He was another one of the guys speaking at this industry conference, and I believe his father produced the Guess Who.
Okay.
So I was reading about them online recently. So
Okay.
I don't know if I know the music.
Well, the song that the Guess Who did that you probably heard was called American Woman.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Well, your voice in that song sounds a lot like Burton Cummings, who was the lead singer.
Ah, that's great.
For the Guess Who.
What a great reference. Thank you.
What did you do with your vocals on that? Because they sound a bit affected.
Distorted.
Distorted, yeah.
I ran them through a guitar amp.
That's what okay. I was going to say a Leslie speaker.
You know what? At the end, I think they go through a Leslie speaker as well.
Okay.
I had a Hammond organ, which I love,
I love the
and
sound.
I use on a lot of my music. And
yeah, the organ is great.
the guy that I got it from made a modification on it so I could run things through the Leslie.
The Hammond organ sound in that song is incredible. I mean,
thanks. That's me playing.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm playing Hammond on all those tracks, actually.
It's something, I think I mentioned this in my email to you last night, that there's just, people don't do that anymore. It's too bad. Well, I mean, you do, obviously, but no one else seems to.
I love it. I think of the Hammond as musical glue. It can take up a lot of space in music, so it has to be used tastefully, but it just ties everything together, I think, really nicely.
Oh, it definitely. And then if you need like that little extra punch in certain spots, it'll just if you do a quick, sort of jab on it.
I love it.
Nice
as I think I said before, I think my favorite sound in the world is probably human voices harmonizing. My second favorite is the Hammond organ.
One of the nice things about that track too, well, there's many nice things about it, but is the vocals, is the big layered harmonies.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. So the drummer and the bass player make up the other voices on that.
Yeah, it's great. I don't know. I just wish that sort of music would be more mainstream, because now it seems like that music has gone indie. And
yeah. Well, music and fashion are cyclical, or fashion is cyclical. People like you championing this kind of music hopefully will raise people's appetite for it.
Where do you think it's going to go? What's music going to be like in 10 years from now?
10 years from now? I don't know. I think there'll always be a certain amount of kind of classic, kind of traditional ethics and values, like I guess I represent and you champion. I think there'll always be that. How prominent it is in mainstream music, I don't know. There's obviously been a lot of kind of fusing of live instruments with digital technology. I'm sure that will continue. The borders between genres will no doubt continue to diminish.
What do you work on primarily? You have a studio and people would come in and buy time, or?
My working process is I tend to write with people either in I have a space where we can write, or I'm endorsed by Gibson Guitars and they have a showroom in Beverly Hills where I write. And then once we've got material that I think's worthy of recording, I tend to go to a proper recording studio, one of the bigger, kind of more established places in LA. So the Village or Ocean Way or East West, one of those kind of places. And I have my musicians come in. I tend to record live, which is how I like that experience. And I also like what it produces, as we've said, the kind of live feel, and you get that interplay of musicians playing off each other and responding to each other. That's what I think is the most exciting thing about music. So I tend to track 3 songs a day, and I tend to get them to track the vocals live as well. If they want to redo it later, they can. I find, again, that when you cut the vocals live with the band, you get something that, even if there's a bit of a mistake, that if you were overdubbing it, probably wouldn't make it, and you'd redo it, because it's gone down with the band. It has that energy, that excitement that translates, and so there's no need to fix it because it feels good.
Technology has enabled people to basically be a one-man band.
Yeah,
which
I've done to some degree in recordings as well.
Well, I think everybody has, in the sense that you can harmonize with yourself. I mean, multi-tracking is not new, but with everything put together, where it's gone away from tape to computer, MIDI instruments, it's just gotten smaller, to where before you needed an entire room. Now you can have everything on a laptop.
Yeah.
You pretty much need to do.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, for a couple of years, I was mixing music on a laptop. Now I've gone back to, I've upgraded to the new Mac Pros, which are actually so small I can carry it in a small, small suitcase that fits in the overhead on a plane. I mixed most of the Social Gravy album while I was in Europe, and I took my computer and a few bits and pieces and mixed it on headphones while I was traveling.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Just plug the computer into a TV and plug in some headphones, and you're away.
See, again, I don't know. I think it's bittersweet. I think it's a double-edged sword.
I agree. I mean, everything is, going back to your argument about performances and that being lost, traditional diehard engineers will say when they used to mix records, when it came to the final print on those big, Phil Collins and Sting albums and whatnot, they would have all the members of the band all lined up on the desk and around the various bits of equipment in the studio, because while they were printing the mix, they had no automation. So everyone would be assigned a certain job to do. One person would, turn the drums up at the end. Another person, it would be their responsibility to insert certain effects at a certain point, whatever. And so actually printing that mix was a performance in itself. And there was an energy and attention in that. And that's definitely lost now, aside from probably a couple of bespoke guys, because, it's automated by computer. And that's not something I really grew up with, because there was already automation and computers when I started recording. But I personally like the idea that every time I open a session, it's how I left it. Which with these old records, they would print a mix, even if it wasn't finished. They would print a mix of where they were at that day, because the next time you pull up the faders, it's going to be slightly different.
You can make the template now on a computer, and it'll be exactly
so now when you have your recording and you click save and close it, the hope is that when you open it next time, it's exactly the same as you left off. And
well,
most of the time it is. The reason I say you hope is because actually with Beautiful, we wanted to make one little change to the vocal, and when we did, we noticed that the sound of the track differed each time we would save it. It would change slightly. We tried our best to keep it the same, but couldn't. So actually the track went from being quite old school, a little bit kind of downtrodden and beaten up, to it's got a little bit of a kind of modern sparkle around it, which wasn't intended to be there, but was the happy compromise that we kind of left it with.
Why was it changing every time you came back to it?
I don't know. That was it wasn't continuously changing, but it would change from one thing to this second thing, and we couldn't find a way to fix the vocal and keep it the same. I don't know. It was maybe a bug in the software or something, or we pulled out. I pulled out all the stops to try and match it up, but there was something that was shifting. I guess that's a bit of a taste of nostalgia for us.
The stories I hear from musicians who said, it's always the accidental things that we keep on the record because those were the best things.
Yeah, it's true. Often it's true. And I think actually, it might have worked in our favor in this scenario. But definitely, I can think of things that, in recordings I've done in the past where somebody does something, the drummer, thinks the chorus is carrying on, and actually it goes to the middle, to the middle eight or something, and there's this like kind of sloppy turnaround, but it ends up being great, things like that. And again, you just don't get that with computers.
No, the computer should do it perfectly every time. The last question I wanted to ask, and then we're going to have to cut this off, is the person that sent me your original song, Try Me, somebody named Soren. Is that your manager or your?
No, Soren. I'm like an industry voice on a site called Music X-Ray. I heard a track on there which poked my interest. It was called T-Shirt and Jeans. Really good song. I think it's a rock band. I think they're based in New York. I'm not sure. Anyway, and I thought it was really good. So I reached out, and Soren was kind of representing these people, and he is a pretty successful songwriter in his own right, and is now championing young artists and writers. And so he said, we started talking, and he checked out my music and liked it, and says, I'd like to send it to a few people on your behalf. And so that's how this relationship was formed.
I got your music through him.
Yeah.
And also on Music X-Ray. So it's interesting. I just wanted to see where the circle was.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks, Soren, if you're listening. And thank you, Douglas, for the interest.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. It was my pleasure to play your music as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Well, that's about all the time for the show we have today. I want to thank my special guest, Bradley Cohn, for coming on the show. Thank you very much, Bradley. It was a treat to talk to you. Good luck to you. Thank you, Cindy, my light and fluffy co-host. Thank you to Periscope Girl. This is Douglas Coleman saying good night.